Now, please move back. HM, I must ask you to have faith in our ultimate aims. I must also ask you to refrain from meeting with any of your co-workers again, except in our usual channels.
Any way you want it.
What if I told you one of the most ambitious sci-fi films of the 1950s was Universal's answer to Star Wars, decades before Star Wars even existed? This Island Earth wasn't just another monster movie. It was a full-blown space opera filmed in dazzling Technicolor, where humanity faced the unknown across the stars. But behind the glowing saucers and futuristic lab coats was a production plagued by chaos, constant rewrites, clashing egos, and a mutant costume so ridiculous it nearly ruined the entire film. These are 16 bizarre and unbelievable facts about This Island Earth, the film that tried to bring prestige to pulp science fiction and paid the high price for dreaming too big. The Star Wars of the 1950s, before Luke Skywalker ever picked up a lightsaber, Universal Studios tried to build its own galaxy far, far away. This Island Earth was conceived and produced as the Star Wars of its day, a bold, colorful, and epic space opera at a time when most sci-fi films were cheap, black and white, and confined to Earth. Universal poured an unprecedented amount of money into the film, around $800,000, a fortune for a sci-fi film in 1955, hoping to prove that it could outshine its bigger rivals with something grander than the radioactive bugs or lizard men that were common at the time. Every single frame of the film was meticulously designed to look expensive. It featured glowing alien laboratories, sleek flying saucers, stunning matte paintings of alien worlds, and vibrant Technicolor skies. This was spectacle on a completely new level. Audiences in 1955 had truly never seen anything like it. For a brief shining moment, it looked like Universal had successfully launched a new golden age of epic science fiction. But behind that shimmering, expensive success, the real drama of clashing egos, busted budgets, and trousered monsters was just beginning. Based on a serious and thoughtful novel, long before it became a colorful, campy classic on the big screen, This Island Earth began its life as a quiet, thoughtful, and serious story buried in the pages of a pulp magazine. The writer Raymond F. Jones published his novel in serialized form in Thrilling Wonder Stories in 1952, and it was a tale that dared to treat the science fiction genre with brains and philosophical depth, instead of just cheap thrills. His novel tackled complex themes of morality, politics, and the ethics of war, at a time when most sci-fi writers were still busy inventing giant radioactive ants and invading blobs from outer space. When Universal bought the rights, they weren't just buying another simple alien invasion story. They were buying a complex idea, one that asked what it really means to communicate across galaxies, and whether intelligence alone could save a dying, desperate world from destroying itself. That intellectual and philosophical depth was incredibly rare in 1950s cinema, and it gave the studio a foundation for a film that was far more thoughtful than the typical creature features it was known for producing. The director's unusual and risky double deal. The film's director, Joseph Newman, didn't just want to film This Island Earth. He wanted to control it. After leaving 20th Century Fox in 1953, Newman discovered Raymond F. Jones's original novel and immediately saw its potential as a major motion picture. So he did something incredibly bold for the time. He bought the film rights himself, hired a writer to adapt it into a screenplay, and then took the finished package to Universal. His deal came with one non-negotiable condition. If the studio wanted his story, they had to buy his script and hire him to direct the film. It was an unusual and aggressive power move in the 1950s, especially from a filmmaker who was better known for making small-scale westerns and noir thrillers, not big-budget epics. But it worked. Universal, desperate for a prestige sci-fi project to compete with other studios, accepted his terms. In a single deal, Newman suddenly went from pitching movies to commanding one of the most expensive and ambitious science fiction films of its decade. The script that wasn't sci-fi. Enough, when Universal read the first version of the script that Newman brought them, they weren't impressed. Producer William Allen, a veteran of Universal's monster movie unit who had helped shape Creature from the Black Lagoon, felt the story was cold, too scientific, and lacked a strong moral and emotional center. His surprising solution was to bring in a new writer to do a complete rewrite. A writer known for gritty detective mysteries, not science fiction, Franklin Cohen. Cohen had never written a single word about aliens or space travel before, yet he was tasked with rewriting the entire screenplay from scratch, with the specific instruction to infuse it with more heart, humanity, and a sense of purpose. The result was a significant shift in the film's tone, moving it away from hard science fiction and towards something more emotional and philosophical. A story about communication and understanding between species rather than just a tale of survival. It was a huge gamble that paid off, giving the movie its unique philosophical edge and its human core. Rex Reason's battle for his own name. Before filming even began, Universal Studios tried to rebrand its new leading man. The actor Rex Reason was told by studio executives that he would have to use a stage name, Bart Roberts, because they thought his real name sounded too fake and made up to be believable for a movie star. Ironically, it was his real name that sounded more like a classic Hollywood invention than the bland stage name they had chosen for him. Reason, in a move that was incredibly gutsy for a relatively unknown actor in the power imbalance studio system of the 1950s, refused to play along. He demanded that his own real name appear on the credits, even if it meant risking his first major lead role in a big-budget film. In the end, his stubbornness won out. Rex Reason stayed on the poster, and the name became one of the most memorable in 1950s science fiction. It was one of many quiet power struggles that took place behind the scenes of the production. Faith Domergue's physically grueling and bruising shoot. For the accomplished actress, Faith Domergue, this island Earth was supposed to be her big comeback role. Instead, it turned into a physically punishing ordeal. During the film's demanding and often dangerous action scenes, she was tossed, dunked, and thrown around with little regard for her safety. In one particularly intense sequence, she had to wrestle with the actor in the heavy and clumsy mutant creature costume. By the time the shooting for that scene wrapped, she later said in interviews that she was black and blue from my shoulder to my feet. In the 1950s, there were no extensive stunt doubles for female stars in these kinds of scenes, no lengthy safety warm-ups. There were just long, grueling takes and a ticking studio clock. Her painful dedication paid off, however. Despite the grueling conditions, her committed performance helped sell the illusion that this island Earth was something bigger and more serious than its rubber monsters. The co-star who never broke character. Not everyone on the set shared the same warm camaraderie. Actress Faith Domergue later recalled that her co-star, Jeff Morrow, who played the alien Exeter, was a hard man to get friendly with. She described him as distant and serious, a man who rarely joked, barely spoke off camera, and consistently kept to himself between takes, creating a somewhat tense and isolating atmosphere on set. The reason? Morrow was a dedicated method actor, and he stayed in character as the stoic, dignified alien, even when the cameras weren't rolling. He believed that Exeter wasn't just another sci-fi alien. He was a tragic, almost noble figure, a symbol of a dying, hyper-intelligent race. To capture that quiet dignity and otherworldly quality, Morrow deliberately isolated himself from the rest of the cast, speaking in calm, measured tones and observing rather than socializing. It gave his performance a strange, haunting quality that audiences definitely noticed on screen. The $800,000 Gamble Universal Studios was not known for big budgets in the 1950s. Their bread and butter was cranking out black and white monster flicks that could be shot quickly and cheaply. But when This Island Earth came along, the studio, eager to compete with the prestige pictures of other studios, decided to bet big. They poured almost $800,000 into the production, an absolutely enormous and unprecedented sum for a science fiction film at that time. That money went everywhere. Massive, elaborate sets, expensive and shimmering Technicolor film stock, cutting-edge miniature effects, and custom-built alien props. It was a high-stakes gamble that briefly paid off, as the film became one of Universal's biggest hits of 1955. But it also taught the studio a brutal lesson. Prestige sci-fi was incredibly expensive, and cheap monster movies were much more profitable. After This Island Earth, Universal didn't gamble that big on science fiction again for many, many years. The infamous trousered monster. One of the most bizarre and unintentionally hilarious details in This Island Earth isn't in the script, it's in the costume design of its main monster. The menacing mutant creature, which was designed to be the terrifying climax of the film, ended up wearing a pair of drab, ill-fitting trousers. Originally, the alien's legs were meant to be complex and insect-like, matching its monstrous upper body. But the special effects team, under immense time pressure, simply could not get the articulated legs to move properly. With the studio breathing down their necks, the crew had to make a desperate last-minute fix. They simply dressed the mutant from the waist down in a pair of common work pants to hide the unfinished and non-functional legs. Movie posters still showed the full, terrifying creature as it was meant to be seen. But on screen, the alien invader looked like it had raided a department store for some comfortable slacks. Ironically, this embarrassing design flaw has become a key part of the film's enduring cult charm. The real UFO inspiration for the spaceship, the sleek, otherworldly flying saucer seen in This Island Earth, wasn't born from a designer's imagination. It was modeled directly after one of the most famous and controversial real-life UFO sightings in history. In 1950, a farmer named Paul Trent took 2 photographs of a mysterious, metallic disc hovering over his farm in McMinnville, Oregon. The photos became legendary, sparking national headlines and decades of intense debate. Universal's special effects team used these very images as a direct reference for the Metaluna spacecraft, carefully shaping its curved hull and glowing lights to match the object in the photos. This was not a coincidence. They wanted audiences to subconsciously connect the film's fiction with the mysterious reports they had been seeing in newspapers. The ship in the film felt oddly familiar, as if it could have been spotted in the night sky for real. The Earth that became the Universal logo. If you've ever seen a classic Universal movie from the 50s through the 80s, you've probably seen a piece of this island Earth without even realizing it. The studio's special effects team built a large, incredibly detailed miniature model of the planet Earth for the film's stunning space sequences. After production wrapped, Universal, in a move of pure corporate thrift, decided not to let the expensive prop go to waste. They repurposed the very same miniature globe for their official studio logo, the one that audiences saw before every single film they released for decades. It was their way of getting extra mileage out of an expensive asset while giving the company's brand a modern, futuristic look. So, every time a Universal movie opened with that majestic, spinning planet, it wasn't just a symbol. It was a quiet, secret echo of this island Earth. 2 directors, 1 troubled vision. Halfway through production, Universal executives began to panic. Early test footage from the film's director, Joseph Newman, was reportedly not living up to their grand expectations. They felt the pacing was too slow and lacked excitement. So, behind the scenes, the studio quietly called in another filmmaker for a secret mission. Jack Arnold, the master of 50s sci-fi and the man behind undisputed classics like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Arnold was brought in, uncredited, to to reshoot key scenes, especially the sequences set on the alien planet of Metaluna. His expert knack for tension and visual flair gave the movie the visual punch that Universal wanted. However, it also meant that two very different directing styles collided in one film. Newman's moody, more cerebral tone mixed with Arnold's pulpy, action-oriented energy created something unintentionally unique. A film that felt both grand and strange, intelligent and wonderfully campy. The Powerhouse Composer Trio. When it came time to score This Island Earth, Universal wanted music that felt larger than life. Instead of hiring a single composer, the studio brought in its Powerhouse Trio: Henry Mancini, Hans J. Salter, and Hermann Stein. This was the same legendary team that had created the unforgettable, haunting sound of Creature from the Black Lagoon. Together, they built a sonic world out of eerie, sliding strings, booming dramatic brass, and experimental electronic tones that were absolutely cutting edge for the 1950s. The great Henry Mancini, who would later go on to write the iconic Pink Panther theme, helped weave moments of strange elegance into the chaos, while Salter and Stein handled the scenes of terror and tension. The result was one of the most unique and haunting sci-fi soundtracks of its era, a perfect mix of otherworldly beauty and cosmic dread. The stars were embarrassed at their own premiere. When This Island Earth finally premiered in 1955, the audience gasped at the on-screen spectacle, but not always for the right reasons. According to reports from the premiere, during the scenes featuring the menacing mutant creature, the film's own stars, Rex Reason and Jeff Morrow, visibly cringed in their seats. The monster costume, which was meant to be the terrifying climax of the film, looked clumsy and most infamously oddly human from the waist down, thanks to those last-minute trousers. Both actors later admitted in interviews that they were so deeply embarrassed by the mutant's final on-screen appearance that they nearly walked out of their own premiere. What was supposed to be Universal's proudest and most prestigious science fiction achievement suddenly felt like an unintentional punchline. The epic sequel that was scrapped before. It began after This Island Earth became one of Universal's biggest hits of 1955. The studio immediately began planning for a sequel. The script was given a title, Aliens in the Skies, and was written with plans to reunite the stars, Rex Reason and Faith Domergue, for another grand Technicolor adventure. The sequel was even set to be filmed in the widescreen format of CinemaScope, a move that would have made it look even bigger and more epic than the original. For a brief moment, the project was in active pre-production, but when Universal's executives reviewed the proposed budget, they froze. The ambitious sci-fi boom was already showing signs of cooling off, and the studio got cold feet about another massive financial gamble. Before a single frame was shot, Aliens in the Skies was unceremoniously scrapped, leaving This Island Earth to stand forever alone. A lasting legacy hidden in the stars. Even after Universal abandoned big-budget sci-fi, This Island Earth refused to fade away. It quietly echoed through pop culture for decades. One of the clearest nods came in a 1969 episode of Star Trek, when Captain Kirk tells a prosecutor he comes from an island called Earth, a line fans instantly recognized as a clever wink to the classic film. The film also inspired homages in later works, from Joe Dante's Explorers to Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie, where it was lovingly roasted as both ridiculous and revolutionary. For a movie once dismissed as too strange, this film ended up doing exactly what its creators hoped. It reached across generations, proving that even imperfect dreams can leave a permanent mark in the stars. For a film that began as a gamble, This Island Earth became something more. A strange, glowing time capsule of 1950s ambition. It dared to dream bigger than monsters in rubber suits, reaching for the stars when everyone else was still afraid to leave Earth. Behind its shimmering colors and awkward costumes was a story about vision, of artists who wanted to make science fiction feel epic, human, and hopeful. And even if it stumbled along the way, it opened the door for everything that came after. So, which fact surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And remember, even the wildest ideas can change the shape of cinema forever.